Good afternoon to all of you. And I'm truly honored to be invited to participate in this important continent-wide event and delighted to be with you despite being unable to be there physically in Nairobi. Your hosts have invited me to share some perspectives about the need for product standardization in the public sector marketplace for the UNIMMAP MMS product and how standardization is being achieved. To provide some context around the need for product standardization and even some context for the other presentations that will follow mine, I want to share some information first about the market, the current forecast projections, a bit about the evolving global manufacturing landscape, and then transition to use that information to describe why product standardization is market essential for public sector programs, how product standardization is achieved, and how compliance to internationally recognized standards is also being assured. There are 112 million annual live births each year in low and middle income countries, excluding China. That translates into about 138 million pregnancies. Either metric represents a very significant market opportunity. There are actually very few consumer products or drug products, for that matter, that rival the potential audience for the use of a particular drug. Aspirin is one, oral contraceptives is another. The left side of your screen shows the cover page of what's called the investment roadmap. This report was developed by 4 foundations during the last year, and it describes the roadmap for integrating MMS into antenatal care services in 45 low and middle income countries that generate 85% of all pregnancies in low and middle income countries. According to the map, the annual number of MMS eligible pregnant women by 2030 is roughly 100 million women. The annual coverage expected is somewhat less than that because of the timeline that we're working within by 2030. But by 2030, we expect to reach and are on track to reach about 60% of the eligible population, or about 60 million pregnant women. The figure on this slide shows the same trajectory of demand as described in the investment roadmap, but superimposed over the demand bars, or the bars that show the demand, are 2 lines. The line in green is the projected procurement for MMS over the same time period up to 2030, and the orange line shows the manufacturing capacity that is projected to exist, again, over the same timeline. It's obvious that efforts are still needed to ensure both sufficient procurement and manufacturing capacity over the timeline to 2030, especially in the out years of this forecast, but I'm confident that we are, in fact, on track to close the gap across procurement, manufacturing capacity, and demand. Over the past 6 years, we have gained a lot of knowledge about the manufacturing and what manufacturing approaches actually exist and have been applied. And there are basically 2. There is local production for a single national market, and this is where producers blend ingredients or use a premix to press tablets, or repackaging of imported product that has been generated in bulk and sent to the country. There are pros and cons for this approach. There are also some key risks, however. Among those are insufficient local expertise and skill, and a lack of competition that can lead to product of an inferior quality. Additionally, it's difficult to make a business case for manufacturing where there are less than 1 million pregnancies per year in a particular country. And in fact, most low and middle income countries have far less than 1 million pregnancies per year. And finally, repackaging product delivered in bulk carries an as yet unknown risk of product instability. A second approach that's been used is the creation of a high volume regional network of manufacturers that serves both the local and export markets. There again, pros and cons to this approach, and there are still some key risks to it, namely that there are few manufacturers in low and middle income countries that provide high volume manufacturing capacity, and achieving an interchangeable product supply across manufacturers is also a very challenging proposition. Nonetheless, the strategy of using regional manufacturing hubs is viewed as a more effective approach for managing the amount, quality, and cost of MMS product supplies. And indeed, the investments that have been made over the last couple of years have tended to focus on development of a regional manufacturing network. If we turn now to the global manufacturing landscape, it has been evolving. 6 years ago, there were only 2 manufacturers in 2 countries on this map. Today, in orange, there are 6 active manufacturers producing MMS, 4 of whom are active or approved suppliers to UNICEF. There are at least 5 manufacturers conducting stability testing and preparing for registration. And this has just been updated based on my visit last week to Indonesia. And then in Nigeria and Pakistan, there are at least 3 manufacturers who are targeted for pre-qualification. And in fact, that may expand, but we should probably expect that it'll be many, many months before any of these manufacturers are actually producing a product. So given the background presented in the previous slides, we can begin to understand why product standardization is market essential. But in addition, we can be more specific. Public sector buyers seek 4 things. They have 4 requirements. The product must be classified as primarily as a pharmaceutical product. It has to be of fixed quality across manufacturers. The manufacturers must have efficient and competitive pricing, and there must be choice among suppliers for the same product. And this is generally for tendering purposes. Product standardization helps buyers to achieve all of these expectations. On the other side of the procurement transaction is the manufacturer, and manufacturers prefer a procurement agreement before undertaking multi-year product development and stability testing. They prefer limited product variations because this helps to achieve manufacturing efficiency and lowers the costs for those who are purchasing the product. Manufacturers also seek uniformly clear guidance on the product specification and any allowable variants to the specification, and all of that being embedded in an easy-to-read procurement agreement. They also seek timely payment for goods sold and a level of advance payment to reduce transaction risk. This, of course, also lowers the cost to the buyer. And finally, they seek ability to sell an identical product for private sector clients. Now, in this case, unfortunately, product standardization can't resolve all manufacturers' issues, but they can provide manufacturers with a level playing field that prevents individual manufacturers from gaining an advantage that leads to development and sale of an inferior quality product that's sold at a lower price. So how is product standardization achieved? Well, it's being facilitated by application of the consensus specification. This is version 3, that now has been published just a couple of weeks ago as a peer-reviewed paper in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences. The intended audience for this document is manufacturers and public sector buyers of the UNIMMAP product. What's in the specification? Well, it outlines the minimum requirements for manufacture of MMS and provides guidance on quality and regulatory standards across a number of requirements, all of which are listed here, but I'm not going to read. What are the objectives of the consensus specification? Well, there are 4. Uh, First is to assure quality. There is no international harmonization of the regulatory status of the UNIMMAP MMS. So the specification has been designed to describe how to achieve a product of equivalent quality irrespective of its classification. It's also an objective of the specification to define the requirements for classification. The specification identifies the incremental good manufacturing practices, or GMPs, that need to be fulfilled to move a dietary supplement into a medicinal classification. Another objective of the specification is to promote product uniformity in the market. Despite two possible classifications, the specification does encourage manufacturers to produce the MMS product as a medicinal product. This is in part because the cost of conforming to the incremental GMP requirements needed to classify it as a medicinal product are nominal, especially when complying with USP standards. Finally, the last objective is flexibility. This specification gives governments choice when making direct purchases of MMS to procure the MMS product of equivalent quality, whether it is produced as a dietary supplement or as a medicinal product. So how can we assure the product specification is actually followed and the label claims are met? Well, you can purchase the product from UNICEF. You can purchase it from a UNICEF-approved supplier or suppliers operating under regulatory bodies adhering to internationally recognized standards as USP and then supported by independent verification. Indeed, a new independent UNIMMAP MMS verification program supporting standardization is being launched by Kirk Humanitarian, the United States Pharmacopoeia, and UNICEF, and it's intended to complement national regulation. It's designed as part of a process to identify and qualify regional manufacturers of the UNIMMAP MMS product. The independent verification begins while a manufacturer is engaged in product development and includes an audit of the manufacturer's quality systems, a documentation review, laboratory evaluation of the MMS product samples as they become available, authorized display of the UNIMMAP verified mark on the product, and post-verification activities on an annual basis. Why is independent product verification important? Well, the quality of supplement products varies widely globally, and this is especially the case where the product does not conform to globally recognized pharmacopoeial standards. Indeed, a recent study of prenatal supplement products from 21 countries found none to conform fully to label claims. Additionally, regulatory bodies focus on documentation of compliance post-manufacturing, whereas by contrast, independent verification focuses on helping manufacturers build quality into the product while product development is ongoing. Importantly, verification also avoids reputational risks, both for national health services and manufacturers of a high quality or of a high profile product. And finally, verification supports consumer confidence in a public sector MMS product, which facilitates consumer compliance or adherence, and which in turn is essential to derive the clinical benefits or effects of MMS. So how does verification work? Public sector buyers agree to purchase only a verified product. Pre-qualified manufacturers are given access to the verification program that's managed by USP. Manufacturers achieving verification are granted use of the USP verified UNIMMAP mark and a new pink figure marks as shown in the sample label here on the right. This new labeling is intended for global use by all buyers purchasing product that's to be donated and is beginning to appear in the marketplace this month. So in sum, demand for MMS in low and middle income countries is growing. The supply is also growing, but demand is for a standardized interchangeable product. A product specification is key to enabling an interchangeable product, and the consensus specification for the UNIMMAP MMS product is consistent with UNICEF's technical requirements. An emerging network of regional manufacturers is, in fact, converging on use of the consensus specification, joining a verification program, and taking advantage of the regulatory frameworks that enable both public and private sector market opportunities for a single product. I will end there, and I'm sure that there will be discussion and questions at the end of this session, which I hope to be able to participate in. Thank you.